This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, just want to say you should check out some of the other podcasts that Southgate has to offer, especially if you're really into comics like we are. Check out Capes and Lunatics, where sometimes you'll find me when I'm not too busy saving the world. Nuff Said, Super Connectivity. Capes and Lunatics even has the Sidekicks episode as well. Check out those feeds as well as Titans Talk to get all your DC comic needs. Or Marvel. They're there too. If you're an Amazon shopper, just remember you can go to southgatemediagroup.com. There's a portal, log into Amazon, and you'll shop into your account just regular, but it also helps keep Southgate running. Welcome to the Krypton Report. It is I, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, flying through the heavens, but I'm not by myself today. No. Actually, I'm really never by myself anymore, so I don't even know why I say that. Like, I started saying that because sometimes I had to be by myself, but that's been like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years now.
So, anyways, that beautiful voice you're hearing from the group.
Hard habit to break.
Yeah. It's Mr. James Cole, the Superman of Red, from that distant land of like 2 hours away.
Yeah.
Not even that. I think it's under, but, it's just one of those fun things that we say.
Well, with the way people drive, because there's a little rain on the ground, a little rain on the roads, you might end up being like twice that.
Oh my gosh. People kill me. But we're going to jump in. But first, we're going to do a little catch-up run back. Because James and I talked about this last time, a little off mic, and we just wanted to bring, if you hadn't noticed, I feel like this movie came out and got no attention. But Wonder Woman Bloodlines came out, the newest of the DC Direct films. And it is part of the continuity universe, but I feel like it came out and it's just kind of like disappeared. Like, nobody's talking about it. I've not heard it on any other podcast. No one's really reviewed it. It's just kind of been like, there it was. So I just thought we could just hit on it quickly. I liked it. I feel like they try to do too much with it. They really, I think, force some stuff in it. It's kind of an interesting movie because it takes place before Justice League War. And then after Hush, I believe, because it is in the continuity. So I just feel like they try to throw too many villains in there. And it works for the most part, but it just feels a little awkward at times. I don't know. How do you feel?
With a lot of villains, some things it can seem a little packed full. But they all kind of, the majority of them, I should say, serve some sort of purpose. Cheetah ended up being kind of like
Blinky Wizard.
Pretty much. She was like a lackey almost. She was just there to slow Diana down, stop her if she could. But the goal wasn't to stop her the entire movie, so it was to use her. So, there was a lot of villains and a lot of things going on, basically trying to manipulate her, which it works. The action's really good. In the trailer, the look of Cheetah was like this monstrous form.
Mm-hmm.
So when people were like, I don't like the look of Cheetah in this animation. when they started it, when she first showed up, she looks like Cheetah. She looks very feminine. She looks like, a woman cheetah hybrid, just an anthropomorphic cheetah, completely humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
But she takes some kind of drug, which actually makes her like incredibly animalistic, the way that they showed her in the trailer. So, at least that was not her her standard look, which was good. The action was pretty good from what I could gather, because I haven't read a whole lot of Wonder Woman solo books. They did pull a lot of characters and a lot of story beats from different comics.
Mm-hmm.
So, during the big fight at the end, what Wonder Woman does to herself during the battle. I heard that comes straight from the comics.
It was epic, and we won't spoil it. I agree with you. I've read some Wonder Woman solo books. Not as many. Like I did a lot of them. I read the whole New 52 line, and it was just different because most of that line focused on her kind of removed from everyone else, dealing with just her Greek heritage. And sometimes it's like, I like the characters when they're not dealing with a villain or a threat that's of their heritage. And I think that works like for Wonder Woman and Superman, like when Superman's dealing with a threat that's not Kryptonian based. You know, he's not fighting Zod or Rogol Zar or whatever else, that's like, Doomsday, like it's based on Krypton. It's like, okay. And with Wonder Woman, it's like, I like sometimes when they get away from the Greek mythology for who she fights, because then it kind of who she is, and she's not clashing with her culture. It's kind of like in the first Wonder Woman film, she fought Ares, which was about her culture, which is fine for that film. But then the second movie, it's supposed to be against Cheetah, So that would be really cool because it takes you a different way than just being another villain from Greek mythology.
Right. From what I understand of Cheetah, it's from another region's mythology,
which is cool. That's completely fine with me. And I say that with just in mind of where this film goes. But I mean, we hit on a lot of villains in this movie.
Yeah, there's Dr. Cyber, Dr. Poison, Giganta, Cheetah, Silver Swan. They even introduced Ferdinand the Minotaur.
I mean, they throw a lot. I mean, it works. But I don't know, like Silver Swan was like a big part of this, and I kind of wish maybe they had just toned it back down to just being like Silver Swan and.
Well, with it being a Wonder Woman, they did do a lot of heart in the film, and a lot of that heart being Silver Swan. She basically lived with the girl who becomes Silver Swan from an early teenager until, I don't know, handful of years down the road, 7-8 years down the road, perhaps.
It gets really wonky with that timeline and time.
They don't really have like any timestamps to tell you that it's been this long. It's kind of like your introduction is before Justice League War, and it seems like maybe it was because we know in Justice League War she's like an ambassador, so she's at least been there for a short time. So it was, like the parademons that took down Trevor's jet was like scouts, not quite the ones that had like set up the mother boxes around, but possibly a wave ahead of them. And so it takes place like shortly before. Who knows? It could just be weeks before Justice League War, and then it goes. But then it goes later.
It causes him to crash, and then I mean it's really weird because it causes him to crash on Themyscira, which is how Steve Trevor gets to Wonder Woman, how Wonder Woman then gets to Earth, and then we have the whole aging up of the girl before she puts on the Wonder Woman costume, and then because we know in Justice League War people know who she is and she's an ambassador and starting to do stuff with Steve. So I mean it gets really kind of mucky.
So, but being a Wonder Woman movie, it was still a lot about the heart of the character, her family, her surrogate family, as well as her Amazonian family, and they did that really well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very true to the character, and it's a good movie.
It is. I don't know.
It's not the best, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be like going back to it as much. I mean, I love that other Wonder Woman film, and I watch it often, but I don't know. I'll have to. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, moving on. So, quick note: this just happened today. Before we filmed or recorded, there was a thing that said that Joss Whedon had wrote 80 pages of script to go with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Because if we remember, Whedon was hot to rewrite some scenes, to add some scenes, and then most of those were all cut out. And I've said all along that I don't blame Whedon for Justice League because I don't think it's not even his film. He would have done things different. I really think that him and Snyder both got scrapped, and it's a studio issue that made Justice League the movie that it was.
Yeah. Well, if the standard, and it could be a little more, could be a little less, depending, how heavy dialogue, exposition, what have you. Each page of script, they say an average is to translate a page of script to 1 minute of screen time.
Yep.
So if he had 80 pages that they used, if they shot all 80 pages, that's 80 minutes out of a 119-minute film. There's 39 minutes of the film that was Zack Snyder's. 39 minutes of the film. That is not enough to be considered a Zack Snyder film. Like, legally,
yeah,
that is not enough film to have Zack Snyder's name as the credited director.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where there's a lot that happened that we don't even know about. And the way that it's stated, it's like he wrote pages for the script that they didn't even use. Like, there was supposed to be, or they filmed and didn't use. But there was more.
Right. Well, he was brought in to do a job.
He was
we know
morphed into something more than what he was brought in to do.
Right. Well, they were trying to morph Justice League from the moment of BVS's release. They were already working on Justice League when BVS was released, and they were already trying to morph it because of critical reviews. Even though the movie made over $800 million at the box office, okay, no slouch of a film, but because it didn't hit the $1 billion mark, and the fact that it was without question at least middle of the road with critics. A lot of critics like panning it, like calling it just distasteful and horrible, which I wouldn't trust those critics as far as I can throw them. I'm strong, but I can't throw them that far.
I mean, he ain't lying. He is strong.
But, critics anyways, I put very little stock into any critic. I mean, there are a lot of people that share similar tastes, and if they say something's good, I'll tend to believe them, but I still judge and make my own opinions on a film. I don't let somebody else's opinion color mine when it comes to watching a film. That's why Man of Steel is my favorite DCEU film, and BVS is in the top 3, sometimes 2.
Yeah.
So,
the other thing is, and this is kind of with that same pattern. Yeah, there was a Men's Health article, and Henry Cavill basically said the cape's still hanging in his closet. He hasn't given up, and that's great. Like, And that's what we want to hear. But like you and I have said before, it's the same thing with like Brandon Routh. He was Superman until he wasn't. He was Superman until the studio said, "Hey, we're done with you and your Superman. We're going to do this." So it's kind of like it doesn't matter if Henry wants to or not, unless he's fighting for it, unless there's like him and a director and a script going at bat for it. It doesn't matter if he wants to do it or not. The studio,
right,
if
and
they don't do anything with it, then it's just that's what it is.
Yeah, and you know, and everybody's gonna we know that, you know, he is till he isn't, so that's fine, and people are going to be like, oh, there's hope yet, which is good, but also there's going to be people who are like, well, they're not doing anything with him, so he's not yet, you know, he's not yet until he is again. But you know, they could still be, at this moment in time, he could actually be Superman. They may not want to lose him as Superman, but they may not also have the exact place or story for the film they want to do with him. So that is a possibility as well.
And that's why I'm just saying, like, it's great, but I'm not like...
But they're not saying, yeah, he is Superman, but he's not having a movie for another 3 years. You know what I mean?
I mean, by the
or,
time...
Or we're not announcing a movie for another 3 years. Like...
By the time he does The Man of Steel 2, it will be Kingdom Come.
Well, Henry's still a young guy, you know. He's only our age,
we're
and speak for yourself, Tyler.
Well, that's true. James is Benjamin Button in this stuff.
Yeah, I got gray going on, but it's just a distinguished look. That's all.
It's true. It is true.
But so yeah, I mean, you know, he takes care of himself. Like I said, I mean, I'm hopeful until he's not. So until they say he's not, I'm just hoping that he is, and they just don't have it yet because they want a little bit of distance from the middle of the ground reviews of Man of Steel and BVS, and then the box office flop that was Justice League, which was executives' fault in the first place. You know, give him a little distance before they use him again. You know, build up a world around it, and then Superman can pop up anywhere and everybody will always be like, yeah.
And then
so
the last kind of piece of news I got was they released saying that Stargirl, which we've talked about before, is going to be on the CW, but from the way I read the article, it sounds like it's going to be on DC Universe. And then 2 days later, it's going to appear on the CW app. So it won't be on the station on television airing. It's just going to be on their app. I think that's kind of interesting.
It does get around some of the network limitations. You know, they could do stuff that's not. They could do stuff a little less DC Universe, which we know is open to anything, language, violence, nudity, what have you, gore, what have you. So they could do a little bit less of that and get closer to network standards, but they could also do a little more than network standards because it's not going to be on network TV.
Right. So, it's cold in the basement. I think that's interesting. But yeah, that's where we're at with all the catch up on the news and everything. And with that,
it's always good when we have DC news.
Yeah, and sometimes we gotta let some stuff build up because I really don't want to talk crisis stuff because it's so close and now it's just advertising and we're already pumped. We're in. I just kind of
advertising and pictures. It's just,
you know, I just kind of want to wait and when we get there, because here soon we'll have a good discussion on Titans, because it's about to wrap up. It'll wrap up right before Crisis starts, or
Yeah, November 29th is the last episode.
yeah. So
same day as the debut of Harley Quinn, the animated series.
Yeah, so
They're dropping both that day.
So it'll wrap up. So next episode, we're going to focus a bit more on catching up on Titans, because there's no Supergirl next week.
So one thing I do want to just get a quick little thing on about Crisis is because anybody listening has been watching Batman the Animated Series since 1992, since we were all little kids, and Kevin Conroy has been the voice for Batman. He's the voice that everybody hears when they read comics. He's the voice for cartoons and video games. And how do you feel that he is going to be Bruce Wayne, Kingdom Come Bruce Wayne, with the mechanical suit and the mechanical braces to walk and stand? And
how do I feel?
Yeah.
I'm completely pumped and excited, because then we can finally say, when someone's like, who's the best Batman, we can say Kevin Conroy without having to defend that it's animated.
Right.
So all that just goes with it. Like, Kevin Conroy, but he just played it. Doesn't matter.
Yep. Just because he did animation for 30 years, he was a live action Bruce Wayne, and he was a Kingdom Come Bruce Wayne.
And in the same vein, seeing him like that, I kind of wish they would have just used him for Bruce Wayne on Titans. And we can talk more about that next week.
For sure, man. That would be amazing.
Because I have an idea of who I'd like to see as Superman on Titans, and we'll save that for next week.
Okay.
But we're going to dive into Supergirl, season 5, episode 7, called Tremors. And this was a pretty good episode, and maybe not for the action, but for the drama. And because it starts off, and we have John and Supergirl are kind of sparring. And I like to see that again, because I like to see them kind of engage. And John has a psychic, like, attack. And it's just kind of like weird, because he has this attack, and then he's got to stay calm. And that leads John going back to his apartment to meditate, to contact his father. So I'll put a pin in that and hold on there, because like I've said many times on this show, I could really watch a show of John and his father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when they're together, that is an engaging two actors that I think surpass any of the other actors on the show.
Like, have you seen the behind the scenes photo of Philip Morris? No, not Philip Morris. Phil Lamar. Phil Lamar. Phil Lamar. God, the guy who's playing John. Why am I blanking on his name?
Harwood.
David Harwood, and
Carl Lumley.
Carl Lumley. The three of them together, just chilling, hanging out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just a behind the scenes shot, but it was all three of them, arm in arm, smiling, like, we got Martians, got a Martian family.
Oh, quick thing. I wanted to say, I totally blanked on this. You are right. I hear Kevin Conroy's voice in every Batman I read but one. For some reason now, when I read Lee Brahimo's Batman, if it's Damned, Noel, whatever, I hear the Ben Affleck style voice. Just those, few stories. Okay, back.
Makes sense.
But
super speed back here.
So John goes off to do that thing. Cool. But here's what was crazy to me. I'm sitting there thinking, like, can Supergirl the show really do Leviathan? Because we just had event Leviathan end, and to me it was kind of disappointing.
So I just picked up my books and I have not read, but I must say, okay, I have not read part 6, but it came out last week. And the fact that I have not seen one thing on Facebook or Twitter revealing the identity of Leviathan. Just shows how little how little that it matters who it is. I don't even know who it is, but that shows how little that it matters in the DC universe that whoever Leviathan is, because people are all ready to spoil everything.
Yes.
Comics, movies, TV shows, people are all ready to spoil everything. And on Facebook and Twitter, I have not seen one thing saying this, that, Leviathan revealed, this is who it is, da 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 da. I don't even know because I haven't seen it, and the book's been out for over a week. That is how little of a splash that has made, and that's ridiculous.
Yes. And when you read it, you'll just kind of like, huh. And that's why, like, I'm sitting here this whole episode thinking, like, how can they do Leviathan? Like, is this really Leviathan? And it just seems like it's just Leviathan in name only. Like, it was just a name they used to be like, oh, and in a way, I kind of like where this is kind of going with Leviathan, more so than what the book did. But we find out, and this is where it gets crazy, is old lady Leviathan, as I was calling her, we found her name's Margot.
Yes.
Is in Lena's apartment, wants the medallion, which we mentioned last week. The medallion, the writing on the medallion is not just an image, it's writing that translates to Leviathan. Attacks Lena, tries to shoot her, and basically she fails at her mission to retrieve the medallion. She goes back, and we find out that she's working for somebody, and the actor who she's working to steps in, and it's Mitch. Can't pronounce his last name with a P. But if you are a CW fan or a Supernatural fan, like James and I both are, you'll recognize him as Grandpa Campbell, Mary Campbell's father.
Mm-hmm.
And he always seems to play some sort of pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, trying to think of his character name. He was also on Sons of Anarchy, and he played
Darby.
Played a white supremacist. Darby, that's it. He played a white supremacist.
Yeah, I remember that because there's a little town not far from here named Darby, so it was just easy to remember. And Junia has a cousin named Darby. But yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. He's a great character actor. He was on the X-Files and stuff for a while. So he is, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then he starts talking and talks about, and I quote, our ship landed here like an asteroid and wiped out the dinosaurs. I was charged with protecting this planet. Okay. And he is called Ramakhan, and he's been here throughout history. We find out. So I was like,
yeah, lots of different things. Volcanoes that wiped out civilizations.
Noah's flood.
Noah's flood. Yeah. Earthquakes. Yeah.
Because what happens is he says, I'll do it myself. And he attacks Lena when she's doing this speech. And she has Supergirl there to protect her. And Supergirl unloads her heat vision. And it does nothing. It shoots through him, and then he heals. And they start calling him an earthbender, which I thought was kind of interesting. But have you ever heard of this character before? Like, I didn't look him up, because I just watched the episode today before we recorded, so I didn't have time to really like research and look up Ramakhan.
The name sounds familiar, but I do not have a lot of knowledge. Ramakhan.
And see, that's how I feel. But then Khan is just another name for like a king or a lord, like
he's a fictional character in DC Comics universe. Earliest appearance is 1004 BC, with no information given about his exact birth date. In the land of Atlantis, he became the joint ruler of Atlantis. 21st century Ramakhan appeared in Juniper as its elemental defender.
Well,
he broke Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, resulting in resulting in reality unraveling as the nature of existence began to be defined by the belief rather than truth.
And doesn't that sound like a really big, powerful character that I don't feel like we're really touching on? No, like not to spoil or jump ahead right now, but the way that this episode goes, and the fact that we have one more episode before Crisis, really makes me feel like when we get back from Crisis, this is going to be a little bit of a different show. Like there's going to be things adjusted through Crisis for the back half of this season.
Right. It says Ramakant's abilities are largely based on his birthplace, Jaharnapur. With the aid of magic, Ramakant can turn a handful of its soil into fire, granite, or wine. Khan is also super strong, immortal, and is a great magician.
God!
Now we got Shatner.
Because, they said it was a sister planet to Krypton. Of course it was. So they decide that they need a weapon that's powerful enough to kill Kryptonians. They talk about Lexes. And, Superman's got some of those saved in the Fortress of Solitude. And Kara decides to take Lena with her to the fortress. And jumping back to Jean, ends up meditating and gets a really great scene with Maren. And basically is told... It's a powerful scene, but he needs to open his mind and soul up to his brother completely and lay himself before his brother so his brother can feel everything and know everything. The only way to heal Malefic, because Maren reveals to John that Malefic's not in the Phantom Zone, that he's just across town and that he's a prisoner. And he doesn't tell Jean who has him imprisoned. He says, you can figure that on your own, which I think is, really interesting. And he presents Jean with this chance to save his brother.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. I mean, he goes to his brother. His brother's dead set on killing him, and then he telepathically touches him, feels all the pain and remorse and love and everything else, and then they embrace.
Right. So if you think about it, the big revelation of Leviathan, basically being led by Ramakant as this organization that I don't even know, because half of it doesn't make sense, like why What's-Her-Face was working for Leviathan. Now that it's turning out to be more of an alien type thing. And then, plot thread 2, Malefic kind of seems resolved because him and John have this moment of forgiveness and brother, how'd I wrote it? Brothers meet, brothers bond. And so they're kind of together. So that's kind of resolved, which takes us back to the fortress, where Kara and Lena are together. We find out that Superman had the fortress programmed to recognize and attack anyone that recognized Luthor DNA. So it goes into the L protocol to attack Lena.
It does also say that the computer defenses also does say that she has kryptonite and she has his teleportation watch or whatever, which she denies and fully lies about it.
And Kara just goes with her.
Yeah, she frees her, she shuts down the defenses, and Lena reprograms the fortress to attack her.
How did she do it so easily? Like,
yeah.
I know she's really smart, but she's never been there. It's alien tech. It's not based on our technology. How did she program it? It's like a MacGuffin switch or something, just a...
yeah.
But basically, she programs the Fortress of Solitude. The Fortress of Solitude to attack Kara. Because basically, there's a great scene. It's... Lena's walking around in the fortress, and Lena sees Myriad. She's talking with Kara about it. And we're going to put a pin in that real quick because I wanted to jump back because I wanted to save this one for the last conversation. There was a quote that I wanted to say from Moran here. It says, "There's no right, there's no wrong, only peace of heart," that he tells Sean. And I just thought that was really powerful. And because I wanted to jump back to talk about Alex and Brainy are trying to find out what they can about Leviathan. They think they ID. I just mixed his names together in my hand. I was going to say Rip Rogers, but that's not.
Russell Rogers or Rip Roar.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I just threw it together. And they go, and it's just his tech, and it blows up, and it kind of damages Brainy. But when he fixes himself, he gets smarter and starts absorbing more information. And, Alex kind of falls down and is in the hospital real quick from the explosion. And there's a scene with her and Kelly that basically looks like Kelly's going to leave Alex. And they have a little bit of a rendezvous at the end of the episode where they're trying to reconnect together. And I missed it because the kids came in and were trying to get me to help them with some stuff. But Brainy, his intelligence increases. He finds where Leviathan is. They go there, and it looks like Leviathan's headquarters is they're in a pocket dimension or something, where some sort of tech is keeping them hidden because Brainy can't actually physically find them. And there's another woman there, and she's kind of the question mark, a blonde that we haven't seen before, who's talking about her tech, to Ramakan about allowing her to use her tech to control people. And there's no Rojas in this episode, or Nia in this episode at all, or Catco.
I didn't catch that woman's name either. I don't think they said it.
They never said it. So she's kind of like the wild card, I'm saying. But so there's our other characters, what they're up to in this episode. Now back to the fortress. So Kara is not paying attention when Lena reprograms the fortress. She says she's sending a message to Brainy, which is wrong. They're looking at all the weapons in the storeroom. Lena discovers Myriad. And they're talking about it. And then Kara goes away and comes back. And Lena has Myriad in her hands. And Kara says, what are you doing? And Lena goes, basically pauses and admits it. She says, you caught me. And I've been using you the same way you use me. And it just breaks from there. It just goes to them arguing. Lena has, from an acting point of view and just scene stealing of how she killed her brother. And Kara naively is like, oh, no, I killed him. He fell. She's like, no, he didn't. He used his transdimensional watch. And I knew where he would be, and I shot him. She's like, I had my gun, and I was waiting. And I put two in his chest because I knew I had to protect my friends. And she's like, and with his dying breath, he told me, he showed me that, you were Supergirl, that everyone had been lying to me. And she goes on, and it's gut wrenching and breaking. And she goes on about just all the pain and how Kara wore her down to trust people again, but she was lying to her. Of course, Kara tries to come back. And then she says, well, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you out me? And Lena just basically is kind of unraveling her plan to Kara. And that's when the fortress attacks her, and imprisons her. And it's just dang.
Imprisons her and basically uses kryptonite on her. She's got the veins rised up in her face and the green and stuff pulsating through her.
And she says, I'm not a villain. You shouldn't have treated me like one, before she uses the teleporter and leaves. Which is a a great quote, but at the same time, like, you became the villain.
Yeah.
You know, because you, and I mean, without last week's episode, I don't think it would have worked as well in this episode of her actions. But
yeah, lying, stealing, controlling people, telling Russell Rogers to cut his own throat if Rojas didn't listen.
There was a scene where Lena, like, you know, Carl looks at it one way and Lena says the other way when she talks about how they were on the plane and it was going to crash. And Lena's like, you know, I was trying to protect and save my friend from it crashing, but little did I know my friend could actually fly. And, you know, and Kara says, well, I wanted to tell you, like, you know, and one way Lena's pointing out an example of how many times Kara has saved her without her realizing it. But at the same time, she's pointing out the lies that Kara told her and how foolish Lena felt, you know, trying to save her friend. And she was fearful for her friend, but her friend was fine. Would have been fine with no issue, no problem. And that's plot 3. So the main plots of villainy that we've been presented this season is what is Leviathan? We kind of understood the shadow thing in Rojas and that whole angle.
Mm-hmm.
And then Malefic. And now Lena outing Supergirl after, you know, we've been building this plot of Lena going to use Supergirl. So in a way, this almost feels like a season, like the episode before the season finale. And that's why I say I feel like after Crisis, it's going to be something of a different show.
Right.
I could be wrong, but I feel like there's some things that are...
Well, they have stated, you know, things like that, especially with the Flash, that there's like pre-crisis and post-crisis.
Exactly. And
so things are likely to be different.
And that's what it needs to be. I mean, it needs to be, when it's all said and done, it needs to come off and feel like a little bit different. There needs to be some readjustment, recalibration, because if they don't fold the multiverse into one, what's the point of doing Crisis? Like, it'll help soft reboot the entire CW verse of shows.
Right.
But all right, man. Well,
yeah,
that's it for this episode.
That's about it.
we got it here. I mean, it was good. We're getting ready for Crisis, so let's tune in next week. We're going to talk more Titans and just kind of wrap up and kind of catch up on our CW shows before we kick off our Crisis. So
yeah, I've got to catch up on some. The only ones I've actually been up on is Batwoman and Supergirl. So
I'm like one episode behind everything.
So I am two episodes behind on Black Lightning, probably 4 episodes behind on Flash and Arrow.
All right, good listeners. Let us know what you think. Drop us a line. Keep your ears to the, you know, your ears down, heads up, 7 Up, and
watch out for Tremors.
Watch out for Tremors.
Never know when, you know, Ramakhan's gonna destroy civilization.
But don't worry, James is Superman Red, and he can throw really far, so he's got you.
Yep.
Look in the sky. Superman is coming. Da! It's so awesome.
Look up in the sky.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Supergirl.